I just want to give a shout out to Peter Carlos. I had a blast in their film class. That's me. That's me, the program director that I went to you for a lot of help and guidance. Said, would you read this if you didn't have to grade it? You were very kind. I want to thank a few friends and family who are here tonight. My wife, my son, George. I hope he does not freak out and scream. If he does, this might be shorter than I intended. So, can you hear me okay? Before I left Lindenwood, I wrote a thesis. It was a novella about an insecure, introverted correctional officer at a prison facility. The prison is the tallest building in the city, and our setting is some undisclosed time in the future. The main character, Newbold, begins to see things happening in the prison that disturb him and cause him to question the system he is a part of. The following is Chapter 2 of Newbold. Chapter 2, The Incinerator. Highways stretched out over the city like a giant spider's web. On occasion, sunlight would filter through in checkered pools onto the lower streets. But the sun was usually obscured by the towers, canyons of concrete and steel and glass that loomed above the insect-like pedestrians. The wealthy settled on rooftops, drove the flying cars, swam in pools in the sky and were bronze. And you could assume a lot about a man's situation by the paleness of his skin. Newbold was white. One night in the mess hall, an inmate took a metal tray and beat it over a man's skull 10 or 12 times before Newbold and Benson broke them apart. "Get on the wall," said Newbold. "Get on the wall." He pointed his rifle at the inmate's face. 425 was the number on the jumpsuit. The inmate's eyes were large and wild. So was his smile, just a few teeth in his wide mouth. Benson knelt and checked for a pulse on the other one, the one who'd been assaulted. His face was mutilated and covered in blood. Benson looked up and frowned. "God," said Benson. The bloody tray was still in the hands of 425. "Yeah," he said, and his eyes were big. "I got him. I sure did." "Shut up," said Newbold, and he spun 425 around and cuffed his hands. Sure, said 425. "Cuff me, baby." Newbold slammed the inmate's head on the wall. "He goes to the basement," said Benson. "Me?" said Newbold. "Protocol. But I've never..." "It's time you did. I'll come with you." Newbold, Benson, and 425 stood together in the elevator. A bell told every half second of the descent. 54, 53, 52, 51. "You scared?" 425 said to Newbold. "You scared to kill me?" Newbold said nothing. "Your hand shaking, man. I see your hand shaking, man. Go tell them I want somebody who'd do it right. I don't want to be twitching when it's over. Go give me a real cup, you so scared." Newbold pounded the inmate's jaw with the butt of his rifle. 425 fell to the elevator floor and spat out one of the only teeth left in his head. "Woo-hoo," said 425. "There you go. There it is. Okay, you got it, okay." Benson gave Newbold a curt nod. The final toll and the elevator door opened. "Move," said Benson. He glanced at Newbold, who pressed the gun barrel to the prisoner's back. 425 stood up and they all stepped out onto a vast concrete floor. No furniture, no trappings, a sanitary space, utilitarian and with no ornamentation, just the many columns like frozen blocks of ash upon which the giant structure rested, and the glossed slab of flooring, and the long gray walk to the iron door at the far end. The walk down the broad aisle was a long walk, and when they reached the door, 425 looked back at Newbold. Benson stood away. "Don't look at me," said Newbold to the inmate. "Turn around." "Oh, okay, easier that way." "Get on your knees." 425 knelt. "Why did you kill that man?" "What?" "Why did you kill him?" "Man, shoot me." "Answer the question." "I don't got time for this. You've got your whole life." "Nice. Answer me." 425 looked up. for the shadows in the vaulted ceiling. "You see," he said, "ain't nothing to lose in here. I hurried the process. We done?" "That was a very indecent thing," said Newbold, "what you did." "Oh, God, please kill me. Will you shut up and pull the trigger? Pull the trigger!" Newbold shot. The body flew forward, slammed against the iron door, and crumpled like a rag doll. The shot echoed on in some corner of the basement. A red puddle bloomed below the body. Newbold stood still. "Continue," said Benson. Newbold sniffled and wiped his face, then fumbled with his key ring. "This one?" said Newbold. "The big one," said Benson. "Skeleton key." Newbold unlocked the iron door. It was broad and heavy, and when it opened, a cloud of gray dust hit his face, and he sneezed, and his eyes watered. 425 was heavy, and Newbold struggled. In the end, he picked him up by the torso, held him tightly, and lifted him off the ground. 425's arms hung limp over Newbold's shoulders, as a sleeping child is held by his mother when he is carried off to bed. After he stumbled into the iron room, Newbold lowered the body onto the floor as gently as he could. He laid the head down slowly. "Come on," said Benson on the other side of the door. "Let's go." Newbold stepped out and latched the heavy door. "What now?" Red button on the wall. Newbold pressed the button, and behind the iron door came a thundering rumble, the incinerator waking. "What else?" he said. "That's it. It cleans itself later. You just log it when you get upstairs." They repented and returned to the elevator, and the only sounds were their boot heels clicking on the well-swept basement floor. "It can be done cleaner than that, you know," said Benson. "You'll need a new coat." Then Newbold saw, down the front of his uniform, an immense dark stain. He unbuttoned the coat, his fingers trembled, and there were many buttons. He turned the coat inside out so that the fur was exposed, and he threw it into a large waste receptacle near the elevator. When the outer door slammed behind him, he jolted and blinked. He left the prison lot and heard a chime in his pocket, a message from Audrey. She was at the diner having breakfast if he was up for it. The bluish gray before morning light was a kind of limbo, a drowsy world between worlds. It fell just short of function. The square was quiet only during these brief moments and was like the scene of an air raid after the wreckage of the previous night. Nights in the city, in the square, mobs and pleasure seekers romping and yelling, laughing and buying fine things and eating fine things and tossing unwanted things onto the ground. A damp fog hung on the pavement, and a few lonesome figures roamed the streets, like survivors of war, looking for food or family. A drunkard lying on a bench, stirring and rubbing his eyes. A homeless woman, sifting through fruit rinds and discarded Chinese takeout containers. A street sweeper and the swishing sounds of his broom, like waves. Newbold shuffled slowly across the square. The enormous screens, stories high, spanning the long faces of the great towers, ought to have slept sometime, but they heralded on, like an incessant rooster that cannot tell day from night. But now it was nearing day, and these privileged few were audience for the dazzling spectacle in the heart of the waking city. Who was the intended audience for this show? How many millions spent on advertising? How much for this time slot? How much to strike up the electric band, to be seen by the drunkard and the broom boy? How many bulbs? How much electricity to pump life into these enormous digital walls, these harlequin banners? Did the homeless woman care for that brand of denim or covet those shivering gowns worn by starlets? Newbold entered the diner. A bell announced his entrance. A pale brunette sat in the corner booth. He joined her. "Hi there," she said, but she wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were downward on her device. "Hi." He sighed and closed his eyes. He shouldn't have come. but the smell of bacon and eggs was good, and the pastries, and the coffee too. And the chatter at the counter was pleasant and cheerful. "Hi," she said again. He opened his eyes. "Sorry." The sweeper beyond the window gathered tinkling bottles and stirred the ground up into little gray clouds. "You all right?" she said. She was perky and distant and was still looking at her device. "Rough night?" He sighed again. "Well, you just need some breakfast, baby." "I don't know." "Sure you do." She pressed a button for the waitress, who came immediately. "Hey there, hon," said the waitress. "What'll it be?" Her smoker's voice was lower than his own. "Eggs," he said. "Bacon, coffee. Anything else?" He shook his head no, and the waitress left. "Want to talk about work?" she asked, and tapped the screen of her device several times. "No, thanks." In a moment his order came. He took one bite of his scrambled eggs and decided he couldn't eat. But he held his warm cup of coffee and sipped it slowly. It was good and smooth, and his hand finally stopped trembling. "Oh," said the girl, "I beat the 5th level of the candy game! How exciting!"